Some people think prosperity is just about luck, hard work, or being in the right place at the right time. But what if I told you the Bible holds hidden codes for prosperity way deeper than most folks realize? Isaac, one of the quietest characters in the Old Testament, lived out principles that straight up defy human logic, and they still work today. Here's the wild part. While everyone else was chasing money, fame, and success, Isaac simply obeyed. And that obedience? It led him to reap 100 times more than he sowed during a famine. He thrived when no one else could. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was spiritual awareness, strong faith, and a life aligned with God. These 5 lessons aren't just for folks who want to get rich. They're for anyone who wants to live with purpose, peace, and divine direction. And honestly, the most powerful lesson might be the one you've never even heard before. Because what Isaac did challenges a lot of the beliefs that might be holding you back right now. If you've been wondering why things feel stuck, why your efforts don't seem to pay off, or why your finances or spiritual life feel like they're on pause, stick with me. What you're about to hear could flip the switch inside you and change the way you see life from this point on. When everyone else was saying run, Isaac stayed. God told him to remain in Gerar even when the land was dry and hunger was knocking. Anyone with common sense would have packed up and left. But he didn't follow human logic. He followed something much deeper, spiritual direction, obeying. God doesn't always make sense in the moment. Sometimes it seems crazy even to you. But obedience unlocks power in the unseen. When someone chooses to listen to God's voice, even when everything says don't, they're stepping into something beyond reason, the supernatural. That's where spiritual awareness kicks in. People with that kind of sensitivity know. Not every blessing comes wrapped in comfort. Sometimes the path to prosperity runs right through a season of lack. And in moments like that, your trust in God has to be louder than your fear of failure. A lot of people stay stuck because they only want to obey when everything makes sense. But here's the truth, if Isaac had waited for it all to be clear, he would have missed the miracle. And you? Could it be that you're putting off something God already told you to do just because you're trying to overanalyze it? Sometimes, the strongest faith is the kind that rises in the dark, and here's the twist, staying in Gerar was just the beginning. Because obeying in hard times builds the kind of soul that's ready to take even bolder steps, which is exactly what Isaac did next. While everyone else was sitting on their hands, Isaac grabbed a shovel. Nobody wanted to plant in dry ground during a drought, but he didn't focus on the cracked soil or the bleak forecasts. He focused on what God had said. In that moment, faith wasn't just a belief, it was action. That's the difference between folks who just wait around for a miracle and those who become part of one. Isaac didn't get on his knees begging for rain. He planted anyway with zero guarantee of a harvest. That's what God honors, bold moves. Real spirituality isn't passive, it's gutsy, it's active, it's daring. It shows up and gets it done, applause or no applause, and you know what happened? He harvested 100-fold. In the middle of a drought, he prospered. While everyone else was whining, he was watching things multiply. There's a powerful truth in that. The real strength of faith shows up when we refuse to let fear of the moment shape our actions. Today, your dry field might be your emotions, your finances, or your spiritual life. But have you had the courage to sow anyway? A step of faith could look like finally starting that course you've been putting off, reaching out to fix a broken relationship, or getting back into prayer regularly. God doesn't bless laziness. He blesses brave, conscious action. And if you think this whole thing is just about planting seeds in the dirt, hold up. Isaac's story still has way more to teach, especially when it comes to what we do with the blessings we already have. Getting blessed isn't the end game, you've got to know what to do with it. Isaac didn't just celebrate his harvest with no direction. He reinvested, he multiplied, he took care of what he was given. While some people lose control the second success shows up, Isaac understood that wisdom is what keeps what faith brings. God gives resources, but it's spiritual purpose that determines where they led. Plenty of people ask for prosperity, but can't even manage their time, money, or relationships. Isaac teaches us that true spirituality comes with real-world responsibility. Let's be real, how many times have you asked God for something and then wasted it? A job, a gift, an opportunity. Yep, Isaac shows us that a blessing without stewardship becomes a burden. He treated what he had like it mattered because he knew it all came from God and it was meant to be used with intention. Living this out might be simpler than you think. Start by checking your habits. Are you overspending? Are you investing your time in things that feed your spiritual, emotional, and financial growth? Maybe look into financial wisdom books like Smart Money by Gustavo Cerbasi, or get organized with apps like Mobiles or an app. And speaking of good management, life doesn't just get easier when you start prospering. In fact, sometimes the more you grow, the more conflict shows up. And that's where Isaac reveals one of the most underrated signs of real spiritual strength. The more Isaac prospered, the more pushback he got. People kept fighting over the wells he dug, blocking them, claiming them, filling them in. But he didn't throw fits, didn't waste energy on revenge. He just kept digging. And that's the wisdom key right there. Stay the course, keep the peace, and don't lose your focus. Some folks think walking with God means smooth roads. Truth is, the further you go, the more resistance shows up. But that's not a sign you're off track, it's often proof you're right where you need to be. Isaac knew that, and he answered with resilience, not retaliation. This kind of spiritual persistence isn't about stubbornness, it's about clarity. He wasn't fighting out of pride, but out of purpose. And when your mission is right, perseverance becomes a language of faith. Instead of camping out in conflict, he looked for the next open space until he found his place of peace. Ever notice how some battles are just distractions, pulling you off mission? Maybe it's time to stop wasting energy on pointless arguments and focus on what actually matters. The kind of positivity that comes from walking with God isn't naive, it's strategic. It doesn't clap back at everything. It doesn't take every fight. And the best part, when he finally found a well that no one fought over, he said, "Now the Lord has given us room." But that peace, it came after a whole lot of struggle and a mindset that would shine even brighter in the next chapter of his life. After being rejected, envied, and kicked out, Isaac had every reason to fight back. But he chose peace. He held on to his ethics, his spiritual strength, and his inner calm. And guess what? The very people who once opposed him came back wanting to make peace. When you walk in integrity with God, even your haters start to notice. Your light, prosperity without character is just a trap. Isaac knew that. He didn't let wealth corrupt him. He didn't get lost in pride. He stayed clear-minded and spiritually grounded. Because real victory isn't about shutting your enemies up, it's about living in a way that proves you don't need to stoop to their level to win. In a world where everyone's dying to be right, choosing to be ethical almost feels revolutionary. But that's exactly what separates people who win for a season from those who build something that lasts. Isaac showed us that the strongest kind of prosperity is born out of peace, honor, and emotional wisdom. You can live this out by choosing not to snap back at people, staying calm in the workplace, or reconciling instead of holding grudges. That's what practical spirituality looks like. And no, it's not weakness, it's maturity. Because when you walk with Jesus, you learn that true strength comes from within. And here's what most people don't expect. The highlight of Isaac's story wasn't the crops, the wells, or the wealth. It was the respect he gained for who he was, not just what he had. And that might just change the way you define prosperity from now on. Now that you've heard these 5 powerful lessons from Isaac, let me ask you, what's stopping you from living them out? Are you waiting for the perfect moment? For someone's approval? Or maybe, are you overthinking something God already told you to do? Because deep down, you know, the harvest always comes after the seed. And seeds need courage, faith, and action. How many chances have you let slip by just because things didn't feel perfect? How many steps of faith have you held back from because you were scared of what people might say? Look at Isaac's story and ask yourself, are you obeying like him? Or arguing with God because his direction doesn't line up with your logic? Now it's your turn. Start small, but start. Shift your mindset, take bold action, and really commit to living a spiritually active life. God doesn't move in the comfort zone, he moves where there's faith. And faith that doesn't move gets weak. So drop a comment and tell me, which of these 5 lessons hit home the most? What have you gone through that relates? Or what step do you feel called to take right now? I want to hear your story, your struggle, your breakthrough. This is a space for strength, for positivity, for people who are ready to live with more purpose and spiritual depth. And hey, if this content spoke to you, just imagine what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and stay plugged in. Because here, we don't just share words, we activate spiritual awareness. And this is just the beginning.